I want to say a few words about the story of Yehuda and Tamar, the story in this week's Parshat Vayeshev, how Yehuda had relations with his own daughter-in-law without realizing it, and how two children were born from this, one of whom became an ancestor of David and eventually of Mashiach. Very weird story. Is that the only way Mashiach should have come, from such a weird relationship? The truth of the matter is, there's already a well-known parable brought down by various achronim, including Yehuda, I think, that just like a king who wanted to transport very precious stones in order that nobody will rob him, put a lot of dirt, a lot of garbage on the truck, on the on whatever means of transportation he was using, and under it he buried the precious diamonds. So nobody knew there's diamonds in there. The same way, the souls, very lofty souls of David and eventually of Mashiach, have to come to this world in such weird manner. Something where we would never assume that from such a relations anything good would come out, but indeed it did. The truth is, there's much more in the story than one would assume automatically. First of all, we know of the concept of Yibum, which is used already by Yehuda, and eventually the Torah codifies it, of course, in Parshat Vayeshev. In the end of Torah, it says that if a person dies without children, if he has a brother, then his almanah, his widow, should marry his brother. But if they don't want, then the brother says he doesn't want to do Yibum, and the procedure of chalitza is done. Today, among Ashkenazi Jews, only chalitza is done. We never do Yibum, and there are reasons for it. I'm not going to go into them right now. But originally, apparently, Yibum was the preferred. There's actually a dispute of Chazal, what is preferred, Yibum or chalitza. And even today, I think some Sephardim sometimes do Yibum. If a person dies without children, he has a brother who wants to do Yibum, they still perform this procedure. And the person born from this marriage is considered, in a certain sense, the continuation of the person who was dead without children. People who die without children, in a sense, his own former wife, his widow, and his own brother, the closest relative, become kind of his parents now in the new Gilgul, in the new reincarnation. That's how the books of Kabbalah explain the concept of Yibum. And Chalitza is the opposite concept. There, whatever bond existed is released. The symbolic taking off the shoe is a release of the bond, whatever they would be able to perform, the closest relative of the deceased and his former wife. Instead of bringing the soul of the dead brother into this world, they decided not to do it, so it's a release procedure. And then the soul looks for other ways of incarnations. Whatever the case may be, in the times before the giving of the Torah, the procedure was done not only by the brother, but by other relatives too. A close relative could do a procedure that was very similar and hope to bring back the same soul of the deceased. Only later, when the Torah was given, the Torah allowed the procedure of Yibum to be done only by a brother. By the way, much later than giving of the Torah, in the story of Rut, a procedure similar to Yibum apparently was done by Boaz, who was a relative, not very close. He was apparently a cousin of the deceased. But that's just one of the ways that this procedure could be done also. And hope, it's not as likely, but it's still hope that this relative is close enough to be able to bring back the same soul. And that's why the Mekubalim say that the son that was born from Boaz and Ruth was in fact her former husband in his new reincarnation. Machlon now became Ovid. But before giving of the Torah, really anybody could perform, any close relative could try to perform something similar to Yibum. Practically speaking, Yehuda wanted originally to do the mitzvah that would later become known as Yibum. In fact, he calls it that way. It's a kind of building that happens, the coming back of the soul, the rebuilding of the soul that passed away without children. And eventually, in fact, from Tamar, 2 children were born, Tamim, right? The twins were born, which, according to some Mikubalim, were in fact the very 2 husbands that she originally had that died. Er and Onan came back as the new children of Yehuda now, Peretz and Zerach. So when in the beginning Tamar made her plans, knowing that Yehuda is in a good mood and he is already consoled after the death of his wife, what was on her mind? Did she really want to pretend to be a prostitute so that Yehuda will have relations with her? Did she think that Yehuda will be interested in this? I saw an interesting understanding of this in a sefer by Rav Chaim Dov Rabinovich, Rabinovitz as they pronounce in English, author of Dat Sofrim. It's a very interesting commentary to the entire Tanakh, to the whole Hebrew Bible. But his commentary on Nevi'im is much more quoted and well known than his commentary on the Chumash. It's rare that people learn his commentary on the 5 books of Moshe, but it's much more common that people would learn Dat Sofrim on Shmuel, for instance, or other prophets. And on this week's Parshat, he writes in the name of Zohar that in fact originally the idea that Tamar had was not actually to have relations with Yehuda. This is not what she was doing. She was trying to catch Yehuda's attention to her case. How long can she wait? Either allow the 3rd son, Shelah, the 3rd son of Yehuda, to marry me, or let me go. Maybe they already had a procedure somewhat similar to Chalitza that would be introduced by the Torah later, of course, in the Parshat Kiteitzeh. Or it would be just a permission, but this kind of a situation when she's just waiting till Shelah grows up and maybe he'll marry her, this is not acceptable. How long can she mourn for her husband, for her deceased husband, and how long does she have to wait? So originally that wasn't her plan at all. In fact, I don't think she would actually imagine that Yehuda is so interested in Stam, a woman who is available to everybody. This was not a normal situation. Now, this was before giving of the Torah, so technically speaking, as the commentator is right, Yehuda didn't really do anything clearly wrong. Before the Torah was given, it was permitted to have relations between man and woman, as long as the woman is not a married woman. If they agree, it's a relationship that before giving of the Torah was permitted. In fact, today also, a non-Jew, a Ben Noach, who is righteous, who follows all the laws of Bnei Noach, he's not forbidden to have a relationship between man and woman as long as she is not married to someone else. He doesn't have to marry to have relations. It's only the Jewish law that requires for a Jew to first marry and then have relations. So technically speaking, one could claim that Yehuda didn't do anything wrong. But certainly what he did was at least not proper. In fact, he says it openly when he's looking for a way to return his items that he gave as collateral, and he sends the agreed upon goat, kid, to the woman with whom he had relations, and it turns out that there is no woman there. So his friend looks around and checks around, and people say that there was nobody here, there was no prostitute around here. So then he comes back and Yehuda says, okay, so whatever she took from me, my personal items, let it stay with her, otherwise we'll be embarrassed. So it is embarrassing. Yehuda finds it embarrassing what he did. Even if it wasn't a sin per se, it was an embarrassment. It was an action that wasn't proper for him at all to do. But for whatever reason, he did what he did. Maybe that's why the story is just opposed with the story of Yosef. Some commentators say that Yosef withstood the temptation of his master's wife, who tried very hard to entice him. And Yehuda did not withstand the temptation, and when he already was a widower for a while, and he didn't have relations with a woman for a while. So when he saw a beautiful woman sitting somewhere at the road, he decided that maybe he can persuade her to have relations with him. And when Tamar realized what's going on, she played along with it, meaning, as I said, according to Dat Sofrim, and he interprets the Zohar that way, originally that wasn't part of her plan at all. She just wanted to draw Yehuda's attention to her plight. But now that Yehuda himself offered this, so she realized this is her chance. She wanted always to have a child from this family, from the family of descendants of Yaakov. She married them into that family for the right reasons, Lishem Shamayim. And now is her chance. This is also similar to Yibum, like I said, before giving of the Torah. This is what happened. Yehuda actually brought back his own children into this world through the former wife of these children. When a person has relations with his wife, she, according to the Zohar, retains a certain part of spirituality, certain ruach, certain spirit of his. So that's why the procedure is done through the former wife, the widower, and the closest relative. Together they can bring the same person back into the world, because there's a lot of connection here. But in this case, it wasn't a brother, the relative was the father himself, so he brought back his own children again into this world, already through Tamar. And as I said, since the whole story has a definitely negative connotation, so this is exactly the point. There were other parts of genealogy of David's other ancestors also had all kinds of issues, including Rut. The Talmud talks about it openly, that the people used to say that maybe David is pasul, he is not kosher, because Rut from Moab was his great-great-grandmother. So all kinds of things that are borderline pasul, that were close to being not good yichus, that's exactly what played the role in the fact that David was so modest. The Talmud says it, that the king who comes from such a lineage didn't have much to be proud of because of these various weird and shameful relations that brought him to this world eventually. That kind of king would always be modest, and they call it kupa shel sheratzim. It's as if he has on his backpack of all kinds of creeping animals. It's like a descendant of all kinds of weird and borderline problematic marriages. But still, that's the way he descended. There's even a midrash that his own father wanted to have relations with a shivcha, with a maid, and instead his wife came. And he didn't realize it's his wife, so when she became pregnant, he didn't know who she's pregnant from. And that's why they suspected that David is a bastard. There's a midrash like that too. I saw an interesting explanation that since they were coming from Rut, and they weren't sure if they're kosher or not, even though halacha is that a woman from Moab can marry into regular Jewish families, but this halacha wasn't established by everyone, not everybody agreed with it. So that's why Yishai, David's father, decided at the end of his life that instead he'll have relations with a maid, and a child that was born would not be a mamzer then, would not be similar to mamzer, it wouldn't be psule yichus. That's the way to purify, just like mamzerim, according to the Talmud in the Tractate Kiddushin, can purify this way their children through a shivcha. So too, that's what Yishai tried to do. So his idea to have relations with a shivcha was not simply passion, the opposite. It was actually to try to have kosher children according to everybody, that there wouldn't be any question that his child will be kosher. But what happened was the opposite of what he planned, when his wife came instead of shivcha and became pregnant. So that's why David always had in his life suspicions. He was always persecuted. A lot of people thought that he's not kosher. But that's exactly what made him into what he became. The modesty, and you could see it in Psalms. A lot of Psalms hint to what David was going through all his life. On this I'll end. If you like this video, please press like and please subscribe to our channel.